15 strange scars people discovered after an alien abduction. Anyone who is skeptical of aliens and the existence of ETs visiting our planet will invariably say they need proof before belief. If beings from another planet are coming here, they ask, then why don't they come down and talk to everyone and give them all the evidence proving that they are in fact here? This has been a difficult problem for ufology for some time. What these researchers mainly possess for evidence are anecdotes from government officials, a host of pictures, and occasional videos of unexplained things flying in the sky. The apparent elusiveness of ETs, if they are in fact coming to Earth, is a difficult task to explain. On the other hand, physical evidence in the field is scarce but may be surprising to some, not non-existent. One of these areas of evidence includes strange scar marks on alleged alien abductees, who claim they have been taken up in a craft for a while and subjected to a series of sometimes bizarre, inexplicable experiments. While scarring or strange spots on the skin might not be the best physical evidence, there's some unusual anomalies in skin tissue of some people who report alien abduction experiences, whether during hypnosis or fully conscious. For example, some of these anomalies include bizarrely shaped bruises that cause no real pain in the people, something which doesn't ordinarily occur with a normal bruise. 15. Alien spinal tap. This alleged female alien abductee reported encountering what she described as a female alien-human hybrid inside a UFO ship, with whom she experienced a telepathic connection. The abductee reported that there were other presences in the room with her while in the enclosed ship, who looked similar in appearance to the female hybrid. The girl reported that the ETs, or hybrids, performed on her a series of surgical procedures, which included a spinal medical operation in the lower lumbar region. As evidence to support her claims, the anonymous abductee showed this bruise to researchers at the base of her back, which had a needle mark inside the more traumatized portion of the skin. The hybrid she encountered was described as having short hair that was dark in color, and claims the being was semi-human looking. 14. Fluorescent marks. In these two photos, a man is showing two parts of his body, his thumb and his leg, where there's a glowing fluorescence on his skin under some sort of black light. These photos were taken immediately after the man reported returning from abduction in an ET craft. He said this chemical was used during a medical procedure that he was subjected to during the abduction. The strange part here is that attempts to rub off the glowing fluorescent chemical from his skin proved futile even 48 hours after having discovered the strange marks. Even regular soap, which can usually clean off most chemicals, was useless in removing the strange glowing. The man who reported the abduction said the strange glowing was some sort of light implant done by the ETs, but some researchers believe it was simply a strange chemical of some sort used during the abduction. 13. The retired doctor. It might be easy to discredit a lot of these claims about scars and signs of surgery in some cases. But what happens when they occur on a trained medical professional? In this picture above, a strange mark, which appears like a bruise with 4 distinct segments spaced apart, is shown on a man's outstretched leg. The man happens to be a retired physician, and he apparently believed the unusual mark was so anomalous and different after his abduction experience that he decided to report it to abduction researchers to further the UFO cause. It's worth noting that these bruise marks bear a resemblance to many other abduction marks and are somewhat of a signature for some that they are being visited and taken up into the skies. 12. Prong marks. These marks on this guy's hands were photographed in 1994, not long after he reported an abduction experience as well. It appears to be almost like a fork print on the upper part of his hand, but the fork, or device, apparently had 7, not 3 or 4, prong marks on it. The mark has 6 marks forming a perfect circle, with a single 7th mark in the center of the circle. While this sort of scar might be easy to explain away as some sort of hoax or self-inflicted wound, the interesting thing here is that another alien abductee reporter 3,000 miles away in a different state also reported the same mark to Mutual UFO Network researchers. These are the only 2 cases in the world where this particular mark has been reported and documented. 11. Forcible restraint marks. This photo is of the same man above who reported the weird prong marks on his right hand. The man reported being restrained to a table during abduction by a group of ETs during his trip into the skies. Apparently, the guy resisted the operation, and a device was placed over his legs to restrain him during the episode. These marks on his lower legs are his evidence suggesting the incident was real and not a hallucination or a dream. The anonymous man was interviewed by Bud Hopkins, an alien abduction researcher who popularized the abductee movement and who used hypnosis often to regress abductees to elicit more details of their experiences. The man was also vetted by a MUFON researcher to examine all aspects of the experience. Hopkins also worked in tandem with psychiatrist and Harvard professor John Mack on different cases such as this. 10. Scoop marks. These photos are from alien abduction reports dating back to 1966. While sort of subtle in their appearance, the marks appear to be two scoop marks or shallow indentations in the skin, a common report of abductees following their experiences. While maybe done with some sort of instrument, some believe that cuts like this are done with advanced laser technology. A truck driver in South Carolina, who had one of these cuts appear on him one day, realized when he came home from work that the marks appeared to be from some surgical operation. The reason he thought the marks were strange and maybe ET in origin was that the cuts were incredibly sharp and precise. He had been an industrial laser operator years prior to the incident, and he couldn't believe how well the laser cuts had been done and without him even remembering what had happened. 9. A child's glowing hand. It's an interesting footnote to the alien abduction phenomenon that sometimes whole families report abduction experiences at different phases of their lives. Some researchers like Hopkins believe that the ETS are studying human genetics and bloodlines to create stronger DNA strains, so this fact may underline this core belief about what's going on. In the picture above, we see the photo of an infant's hand with the same glowing fluorescence we saw earlier. Apparently, the parent of this 3-year-old reported an encounter with aliens the night before, and her child, she said, went up with her. Other people in the family have reported abductions as well. The coloration on the child's hand is potentially symbolic, but researchers are unsure what the coloration, or the chemical that causes it, is intended to do. Interestingly, this fluorescent substance on abductees' skin has been increasing in numbers in the last 10 years, according to researchers, so this isn't a fluke or one-time occurrence. 8. Multiple scoop marks. This 40-year-old anonymous abductee has had several of these scoop marks appear on his skin throughout the early 90s. While some might think the mark is simply some sort of bug bite, he reported more than one abduction around this time. The bruise also did not hurt or become sensitive after it was noticed and pressed upon, suggesting something unusual was going on here. The images above show the markings 8 days apart, and you can also see a faint marking from an earlier abduction, about 1 year prior to this photo, just under the present scar. What makes this even more suspicious is how long-lasting the scars are. The marks kept appearing on his skin days later even as researchers studied his symptoms. 7. My lab experiment. My lab experiments are allegedly when a UFO stages an abduction with the assistance of military personnel and aircraft, usually in the form of black helicopters. While these stories might lead some to believe that all abductions are some sort of clandestine military experiment on human populations, abductees say that they often meet during their experiences greys, beings with large black eyes who don't appear to be humans. They allege that the government and the greys have been collaborating for some time to conduct experiments on humanity in varying degrees. This bruise, at any rate, was discovered by an abductee who alleged what some might believe is a MyLab abduction just prior. Surrounding the incident, there were reports of a triangular-shaped UFO reported near his or her home, along with 5 military helicopters, a scenario some abductees and other witnesses around them sometimes report. Some suggest that this may be a biological implant, and the image on the right shows the same scar but with light enhancements. 6. Needle marks inside bruises. This photo depicts another sort of report many abductees have in common. This type of mark, another bruise, occurs on the inside portion of the upper arm, along a person's bicep, which is an unusual place to get a bruise. Ordinarily, a mark like this might happen in some area where a huge pressure or hit can be applied all of a sudden. That normally doesn't occur on the inside of an arm. Skeptics might argue that these are self-inflicted, but the most bizarre aspect of this bruise is that it has needle marks inside of it. This is another typical trait these marks typically exhibit, according to researchers. Actually, it's a bit odd someone might inject themselves with a needle inside a bruise mark. Odder still is that many people would report this same phenomenon after an abduction experience. 5. Awakening with marks. Some abductees tell researchers that they often awaken with large or severe scars, marks, scuffs, or bruises on their body after a night of sleep. Sometimes, These people don't remember what happened during the night, but after hypnosis, some researchers believe they have been abducted after they've been regressed. Perhaps, as some believe, the abductees' memories of the event were removed, or perhaps the trauma of the event caused the mind to forget the incident altogether, which is the case sometimes with near-fatal incidents. At any rate, one of these renditions happened to this person. He awoke with a severe and large bruise on his body, as pictured here, without any recollection of how it had gotten there. He did not remember doing any physical activity that may have caused such an injury either. 4. 3 fingers. By some accounts, the so-called gray species of aliens have 3 fingers. The photo above is this man's evidence that they do, and that they also have a vice grip of a handshake when they put their minds on it. These marks appeared on this guy's arm after abduction, during which he reported being forcibly held by one of the ETS during a trip in a spaceship. Someone took this photo a day after the alleged encounter happened. By now, it's becoming apparent that these ETS, if they are in fact doing these acts, are not the kindest out there. Maybe, they aren't intent on going to war with humanity, but they are intent on studying mankind in some secret, classified sort of manner and not being too humane about it. That at least seems to be the theme of these cases so far. 3. Reptilian Encounter. These 2 photos show a fairly badly bruised arm, like in the previous photos of the man with the outstretched arm, but this one has what appears to be a 6-finger print, not 3, as before. The person believes the abduction she had experienced was by a reptilian type or reptile-looking being, another supposed alien race as described and made infamous by British author David Icke. Her spouse was beside her during the experience, and she had the sensation of being floated underground for the event. This is a common report in alien abductions, when people say they are transferred through a wall, as if they are turned into a light form for a second, warped through a wall, and then switched back to a physical entity. The reptilians are said to be a species of aliens that sometimes dwell in ships and caverns far beneath the earth. Whereas the greys are more commonly reported as being present only in the sky. 2. Large marks. This large bruise occurred on a male's right arm just after he reported an abduction. It is reportedly much bigger than it looks in the photo, about 1 3/4 inches by 1 1/2 inches. Researchers who are believers remain baffled in many ways about why the aliens might be performing these kinds of operations on humans, but the general consensus is that the ETS are performing genetic experiments to create some sort of hybrid species for their own genetic enhancement. Some also conjecture that the greys have lost the ability to reproduce on their own, which has led them to create test tube babies out of a combination of human and grey genetic material. In addition, some abductees have reported sperm and ovum being taken during the abduction process. 1. Fluorescent wrist. In this photo again, we see a fluorescent substance that glows in the presence of a black light. This time, it is a man's wrist, turned downward. Research on the nature of the chemical that caused the fluorescence in this and other abductees has not been conclusive. Researchers stated more studies are needed to isolate the other chemicals found on the abductee's skin. For example, if detergent were on his skin, it might have caused the chemical to change in certain ways. But generally, it is known in scientific communities that certain chemicals, such as fluorescein, are used in biotechnology to flag or label DNA and other compounds. Are the ETS using these familiar substances for their unusual genetic work on humans? Some believe they are, others are skeptical of the idea. However, it's a little strange many abductees all report this phenomenon.